All right. So what I'd like for you guys to do is I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds. And what I want you to do is I would like for you to read this section. And I'm not even going to give you 30 seconds. I'll give you 15 seconds. Read that to yourselves. Go.
God bless you.
All right. You should be done reading that. First question. What is this paragraph focusing on? Raise your hand. Yes.
Investigating slope and Y-intercept.
Well, that's the title, but what do the sentences talk about? That.
Yes, the Y-intercept and the Y-coordinate of the point where the graph intersects the Y-axis.
Yes. That particular, those two sentences, but it doesn't really talk about slope in that paragraph, right? So and I'll read this real quick. It says the graph of a non-vertical line. Actually, before I read this, what I'd like for you guys to do is read this again and take your pen or pencil and underline any word that you think is going to be important for today's lesson. Just the words, not whole sentences, not phrases, just any particular word that you think might be important. And I'm going to do the words that I think are important. So let me read this now. It says the graph of every non-vertical line crosses the y-axis. The y-intercept is the y-coordinate of the point where the graph intersects the y-axis. The x-coordinate of the point is always 0. What I'd like you to do now is reread this paragraph, and I want you to circle any phrase that really sums up what they're trying to teach us. Not a whole sentence. You guys should be looking at your books if you're reading your books. I see some of you staring off into space. Read the book. Circle a phrase. So let me read this again. I said the graph of every non-vertical line crosses the y-axis. The y-intercept is the y-coordinate of the point where the graph intersects the y-axis. The x-coordinate of this point is always 0. So what I circled was the y-intercept is the y-coordinate. Then I circled intersects the y-axis. And then the last thing I circled is the x-coordinate is always 0. So now if I were to ask you guys, what is the y-intercept, what would you say? It's the, yep, everything you're saying is correct. It's the y coordinate where the line crosses the y-axis, and this last part is very critical. The x coordinate is always 0, always. So now let's look at this example. Right here is where my line crosses the x-axis, or I'm sorry, the y-axis. Okay? That's where it crosses, right there. Right over here. What is the x coordinate here? Huh? 0. What did it say in that paragraph? The x coordinate of the y-intercept is always 0. Now, normally when I teach this, I say it, and I'll do 7, 8, 9 example problems. And a student will come to me and say, Mr. Adams, I don't know what the coordinates for the y-intercept. There'll be some sort of trick question, and it basically it asks you to find out what the y-intercept is, and you just need to know the y-intercept occurs when x equals what? 0. You need to commit that to your memory, because if you do, it makes those types of problems very easy. Anyways, let's continue on. It says find the slope of the line using the points 0, 4 and -3, 6. Now, what I want you to do is, what do you think is the key phrase in that sentence? Circle it. Circle the key phrase in that sentence. Something that's important to the lesson. I circled slope of the line. Also, if you don't remember, the slope of the line M is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1. Write this somewhere in your textbook. All over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. They give us 2 points. I'm going to label the first points x sub 1, y sub 1. And I'm going to label the second points x sub 2, y sub 2. Okay? That's a comma between the x and the y's. So if y sub 2 is 6 and the formula says minus, what's my y sub 1? What is y sub 1? I think I heard it. Who said it? Yes, it's 4. Very good. What's x sub 2? Is it 3 or -3? It's -3. And then what is x sub 1? Do you guys know? Did you write this down like this in your book? So when I say what is y sub 1, I'm pointing to what value is y sub 1. When I say what is x sub 1, this is the x coordinate of the first pair. When I say y sub 2, I'm talking about this one. When I say x sub 2, I'm talking about this one. That's why we're labeling it. Did you guys know that's what I meant when I wrote that stuff down? So when I say x sub 2, y sub 2, I'm saying x sub 2 equals -3 and y sub 2 equals 6. Well, let's do some math now. What's 6 minus 4? 2. What's -3 minus 0? What's the answer? -2 over 3. Now, this is an or actually it's 3 minus 2. But anyways, -2 over 3, let's talk about that. I could have 2 over -3. I could have -2 over 3. And that's the same as -2/3. It doesn't matter. By the way, when your slope is negative, a negative slope, you should be writing this down in your books. I got to see those pencils moving. Negative slope is downhill. See how this line goes downhill? So if I look at the graph and I see that that's going downhill, if I look at that and read it like I'm reading a book left to right, and I see that the line is going downhill, I know the slope has got to be negative. Someone in here, might even be me, will make a mistake mathematically and forget a negative sign. They'll think the slope is positive, and then they'll look at the graph and go, wait a minute, it's going downhill. Let me double check my math. Odds are it's probably going to be me. Okay? But that's one way we could double check our work to make sure that it's correct. So now that we know what the slope is, let me show you one other thing too. Remember that the slope gets us from one point on the line to the other point. So if I say, and also remember that this represents the rise over the run. So which one of these do you want to pick? Which one do you want to use for this example? Do you want to use this one? So here's what we're going to do. If you want to use this slope, hold up number 1. If you want to use this slope, hold up number 2. If you want to use this slope, hold up number 3. Okay, we're not going to use 3. Pick 1 or 2. Ready, go. 1 or 2. 1, 2. All right, we'll do number 2. So now number 2 means if I have, that means that my rise is equal to -2 and that my run is equal to +3. Rise is up or down. So remember that your y-axis going up is positive, going down is negative. Also for the x-axis, going to the right is positive and going to the left is negative. So from this point, I'm supposed to go down 2 spaces. So from here, I'm going to go down 1. Let me change the color here. We'll use green. So from here, I'm going to go down 1, 2. That's a rise of -2. Then from that point, my run is 3. It's a +3, so I go to the right 3. So from here, I go 1, 2, 3. Guess what? I'm right on the line. That's the run of 3. See how that works? So if I take and I go down 1, 2, and then over 1, 2, 3, I'm on the line. And it doesn't matter where on the line I start. If I go down 1, 2, and then over 1, 2, 3, I'm on the line. That's what the slope is. That's how it makes a straight line. Aha moment? Good. All right, so let's move down. Step 2. The line also contains a point 6, 0. What is the slope using those two numbers? Same thing. Except we're gonna do, this is x sub 1, y sub 1. And we're gonna use x sub 2, y sub 2. So let me read the sentence. Mr. Adams kind of reads faster than you guys do. It says the line also contains the point 6, 0. What is the slope using 0, 4 and 6, 0? So just so you guys can kind of see what I'm saying, what is x sub 1? 0. Good. What is y sub 1? 4. Now using this new coordinate, what's x sub 2? 6. Good. And then y sub 2? 0. Good. So now remember that the slope is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. What's y sub 2? 0. Minus y sub 1. What's y sub 1? 4. What's x sub 2?
6.
Minus x sub 1. What's x sub 1?
0.
0. When I do the math, what do I get? -4 over +6. What does that reduce down to?
2/3.
Yeah, -2/3. Okay. Compare your answers. What does that say about the equation on the line? Slope is constant. Now, if I pick any 2 points on the line, and then in parentheses, I want you, this isn't what's written in the book, but I want you to write this down. When your slope is constant, it's linear. What does that mean? It means it's going to be a straight line. Think about this. If my rise over run is the same from every point on the line, isn't that going to make a straight line? It will. Are all graphs that way? No. But linear graphs are. By the way, we kind of skipped over this. What does it say up here? Look at our equation. Y equals negative 2/3 and plus 4. What does that mean? Well, this is my slope M, and this is my y-intercept. And sometimes we call that the letter B. All right, sometimes you get y equals, write this in your book, y equals mx plus b. So if I know the equation, and I do, I can graph it because I know where it's going to cross the y-intercept, right, where it crosses the y-axis. And from that point, what do I need to do to get to the next point? In this case, go down 2/3. Okay. So now it says find the value of y when x equals 0. All right, so we're going to say y, well, let me write it over here. Y equals negative 2/3 times 0 plus 4. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this equation, and since they're saying x equals 0, I'm plugging 0 in for x. What's 2/3 times 0? 0. What's 0 plus 4? 4. That's the y-intercept, isn't it? So when we compare this, we say that a linear equation is y equals mx plus b, b equals 4, and then y negative 2/3 times 0 plus 4 equals 4. In other words, when x equals 0, my y-intercept is 4. Now, let's reread that paragraph. I'll leave this up here in a second, but why don't you go back up to that little paragraph that I put in a box? Read that to yourself real quick and see if it makes more sense now. You listen very slow. You know what's hold on, I'm going to tell you a little story after I finish this video. Can I scroll up? Let's read this together and see if it makes more sense. It says the graph of every non-vertical line crosses the x-axis. The y-intercept is the y-coordinate of the point where the graph intersects the y-axis. The x-coordinate of this point is always 0. What did we just do? We found the slope, but we also found out that when you plug in 0 for x, the y-intercept is 4. In other words, when I plug in 0 into the equation, I'm going to get 4, and that occurs right here at the y-intercept. Right? Does that make sense?